What's your creepiest glitch in the matrix or unexplainable thing that's ever happened to you? I was working on my motorcycle in a dirt lot where I had crashed it trying to do a sick drift, breaking off the clutch lever and the gear shifter. I had brought a wrench set with me and I was using one of them to take off a bolt when I put it down on the ground to finish unscrewing the bolt with my hand. 2 minutes later I went to pick it back up and it was gone. I ran all around this dirt lot looking for it to no avail. Luckily I had a spare in the car. Fixed the bike and drove back to my apartment to shower as I was filthy. I walked in my room and sitting on my desk was the wrench. I was dumbfounded. This reminds me of when I was in dance as a little girl. I remember throwing my dance shoe over my shoulder as I was getting ready in my room. When I turned around to grab it I couldn't find it anywhere. My mom and I searched for 10 minutes before we decided to leave without the shoe so we wouldn't be too late to practice. We found the slipper in my winter boot by the porch just as we were leaving, which was across the house from where I was when I tossed my slipper. I was walking my dog and I was almost to the driveway when I looked down for some reason and I looked back up and I ended up being back at the road about 6 blocks away from where I thought I was. I was so confused but my dog looked completely fine. Taking the trash out at night. Super remote area so I know for a fact we're the only ones around here. Getting close to the road and I hear very clearly help me from a female voice. Even knowing there's such a slim chance of there being another living person around, I still feel like I should look around and check it out in case I wasn't just hearing things and someone actually needs help. Take about 2 steps in the direction I thought I heard it. Hear a giggle in the same exact voice. Turn around and walk promptly back up the driveway because duck that shit. Anyone who actually needed help wouldn't be laughing. I don't think. I've told this story before and could go into a ton of detail but here's the short version. I am 100% sure I vividly remember a dog that apparently doesn't exist. When I was 16 we lived on the other side of the province and my uncle had this little Jack Russell named Crew. Crew went missing for several months and then turned up at a humane society over an hour away and we were all shocked this little dog has made it so far. Anyway that was almost 20 years ago and the other day I was talking to my parents and was like whenever I hear about Jack Russells I think about Crew and that stunt he pulled and they had no idea what I was talking about. Insisted my uncle had never had such a dog. I must have dreamed it. Etc. Honestly anyone else who would have remembered this dog has been dead for a long time and I don't even have any pictures of my uncle. I have absolutely no way to prove this dog existed but I'm sure that he did. I remember a trip my family took that never happened. I wrote about it in elementary school and my mom was so confused and told me I must have dreamed it. I'm 29 and still vividly remember walking through the field to this cool little house with my family. So confusing. It's crazy. I feel like it's normal to have false memories from when you're very little. Like under 5-6 but it seems so unlikely as you approach the teen years. I was driving about 50 miles per hour. And a car ran a stop sign on an on-ramp and pulled out right in front of me. I remember bracing for impact and then I was about 300 yards down the highway and I saw the car at the ramp in my rear view. Just about to pull out. I had just pulled into the parking lot of where I worked and was walking towards the building. It was like 3 in the afternoon. Broad daylight. All of a sudden, I heard an ambulance's siren start sounding. Naturally, I looked down the road to try and see the ambulance. I see it approaching and decided to watch it for a bit. It was quickly getting closer. And it was about to pass right by me. However, there was a large SUV waiting to turn out of the parking lot and onto the road, blocking a few meters of the road from my view. The ambulance passed behind the SUV, probably about 50 feet away from me at most. And I vividly remember the siren becoming completely silent in that instant. The ambulance had vanished entirely as it passed behind that SUV. I was so confused. The road did not have many cars on it at the time. And it was broad daylight. I did a triple take and made sure that I didn't just miss it. I had a clear view of the road going both directions. And there was no more ambulance to be seen. No more siren either. I walked up and down the road, trying to find it for a solid minute. But nope. It was gone. I was well rested. Not on drugs. And I didn't have a history of hallucinations. It seems dismissible. But I was completely aware of what happened. And I can't explain it to this day. What? I have a very similar story. Broad daylight. Sitting at a stoplight to turn left under a highway bridge. In front of me and to the left is the turnaround lane for traffic coming from the other direction. I hear a police siren coming my way. I see a motorcycle cop with his lights flashing. And siren on following a white SUV. The white SUV turns left in the turnaround lane, with the policeman following about 20 feet behind. This is where it gets weird. Both the SUV and motorcycle cop are going roughly 25 miles per hour. As the cop enters the turnaround lane, his siren suddenly shuts completely off the moment he passes behind a small concrete pillar. He never comes out from the other side of the pillar. The SUV just continues on as if nothing happened and heads for a Chicken Express just up the street. I'm sitting there in disbelief, wondering how and why the cop came to a complete stop from going 25 miles per hour. And his siren turned off at the same time. And the pillar would have only barely been able to cover him front to back. When the light turned green, I went and looked behind the pillar, expecting to see him somehow, but he wasn't there. My motorcycle cop got swallowed before my eyes into another dimension, and I think the white SUV did it somehow. So, this might be hard to explain. I was probably 12 and lived in a big log cabin. One day while my parents were at work, I got in a fight with my brother, 18, who had some anger issues. He chased me through the house and I ran out one door, around our porch and in through another door. I was going to lock it behind me but didn't have time because he was too close behind me. So, I slammed the door behind me and kept running. When I glanced back to see if he had made it through the door yet, he was banging on the window of said door and yelling for me to unlock it. The door was locked and there was no he had locked it. Because the door could only be locked from the outside with a key, of course. And our parents never gave us keys. There was also no way the door could have accidentally locked when I slammed it behind me, because it needed to be fully turned to lock, and usually required some finagling at the end to make it actually lock. I stood there dumbfounded for a few seconds and then ran to a bathroom and locked myself in there. Definitely feel that saved me that day. I had a similar situation. One day me and my two brothers were helping my dad clean the house. We were sweeping, dusting, washing the dishes, you know, the everyday cleaning stuff. My dad goes to the garage and as he goes inside we hear the door to get in the garage lock as he enters. A few minutes pass by and we hear our dad start banging the door and screaming, saying who locked the door and that it wasn't funny. But we were all in the living. As I go to unlock it, my dad just comes out furious saying that wasn't funny, but I look at him with a confused look and told him we were all in the living room and we never moved from there. So this has always bothered me. I was 13 years old at the time and my dad was a coal miner. He worked third shift, known as the hotel shift, which was midnight to noon. As such, he got home around 2 PM and slept till around 9. Got up, had dinner with us and left for work. My dad was always pretty gruff and constantly yelled at us if my younger brother or I made too much noise and woke him up after getting home from school, which as an adult now I completely understand. So one day I did something to wake him up. I forget what. Anyways, he calls me back to the bedroom and I'm expecting to get a dressing down, but he just looked at me and said, "It's okay. Come over here and give me a hug." What 13-year-old boy wants to hug their dad? I kinda squirmed a bit and he followed up with, "What if something happened to me?" And just laid there all grizzled and tired. I didn't hug him. That night there was an accident in the mine. He saved everyone on his crew. including the one person he went back in for. His was the only death. And I'm convinced he knew it was gonna happen. I'll never forget his eyes that day. If someone asked you for a hug, give it to them. I love you, Dad. Edit, my very first gold. I'm so glad this resonated with someone. I don't personally remember this, but I would see my dead grandfather all the time when I was a kid. From the ages of 7-9 there was probably 10 different incidents. My dad was an absolutely pansy when it came to ghosts, which I don't really believe in, and wanted to take me to the doctor. My dad had one of those bathrooms with a separate toilet room, and no one that lived in the house closed the bathroom door unless they were bathing. I was playing RuneScape and my dad asked why the bathroom door was closed. And I said it's because grandpa's in there. That's the only one I actually remember. There was maybe 2 other bathroom incidents and some incidents when I would sit on the floor and watch TV with my dad and he would tell me to go sit in the what was once my grandfather's chair and said I couldn't because grandpa was sleeping. I don't know how creepy these are tbh, but they freaked out my family for sure. The entire world have slowed down for me a couple of times in my life. My best guess is some kind of adrenaline spike causing my brain to go into overdrive. This has happened to me too. First time. I was about 12. Family and I were in the woods cause my uncle was camping. I brought a friend of the same age and my cousin was there too. Just a few years older. We were playing baseball with an old can we found. I pitched it to my friend. Heard the clink and turned my head to see where it landed. Didn't see it. So I turned back to my friend just in time to see the can come right at my face. I have a small crescent scar on my chin now. The other one was my first car wreck. I was driving around a mountain pass in Montana. Clear skies. Beautiful July day. I was in the left lane going 78 miles per hour in a 75 zone with a slight downhill incline. Not sure what, why or how. But suddenly my arms ever so slightly twitched to the right and my car went flying. Did a full 360. Hit the guardrail head on at a 90-degree turn. Before hitting it, I remember thinking, what the hell did I just do to myself? While the car was still spinning. Got really bad whiplash I'm still dealing with 7 years later. Seems like for me, any trauma plays in slow motion for me to fully absorb all details to replay later. I have a good one. I was about 12 years old. And woke up in the middle of the night needing to take a leak. I walked across the hall to the little bathroom. Hid the lights. And was about to reach for the toilet when I glanced up and saw a face in the mirror. It was not my face. It was as if someone was on the other side. Standing to the right. With their face right next to the glass. Staring at me. I only saw it for the briefest moment. But it is seared into my brain. I screamed. And ran out of there to find my dad. Of course. My dad investigated. Then calmed me down. Or tried to. Eventually we had a prayer session. Because I was so freaked out. Eventually I must have gone back to sleep. Fast forward to my 30s. I'd forgotten all about the event. One night while visiting, my dad quietly brings it up. Remember that one time you saw a face in the mirror? Dart. It suddenly came back to me in a rush of memory. Sending a chill down my spine. Yay. I remember. Well. He said. I sometimes think about that night. He looked down at the floor. With a serious expression. I saw it too. He went on to describe exactly what I'd seen. We have no idea what that was. Apparently when he investigated, he saw it and had a freak out of his own. Apparently the prayer session was as much for his own nerves as mine. I respect him for keeping that tidbit from me till my 30s. But I kinda wish he'd never told me. Wow, that sent a shiver down my spine. That's so scary to think about. What did the face look like and what expression did it seem to have? It was a man. Young-faced. The expression was, if anything, expressionless. Just a cold stare. As if it sees faces through mirrors all the time. I've told this on Reddit before, but here it is. I had a very important document that I only ever kept in one place. I kept it in the top drawer of a small filing cabinet. I never moved it and would always see it in that drawer whenever I opened it for whatever reason. The day came that I needed it now and I didn't sweat it because I knew exactly where it was. Well, I'd be damned if it wasn't there. Cue panic attack. I tore that filing cabinet up. I removed everything and spread it out. Flipped papers over. Dug through envelopes. Shook everything out. Shined a flashlight all through the emptied cabinet in case it was somehow stuck to the sides. I mean, it was not there. I can assure you no one took it or was messing with me. I was so frustrated. I even looked through other parts of my house. But I knew it wouldn't be in any of those places and it wasn't. I was intermittently going back to that dumb filing cabinet. No luck. Super irritated. I searched the rest of the house again and on my way back downstairs where my filing cabinet was, I called out in frustration. Okay. Bring it back. I don't know who I thought I was talking to because I was alone. But you guessed it. I found it in the top drawer of my filing cabinet where it should have been in the first place. I was relieved and totally freaked out. Edit. Thanks for the silver. I called out in frustration. Okay. Bring it back. On numerous occasions I've done something similar when I can't find something even after looking for a long time in the place where it should be. I usually say something like, I don't mind that you borrowed it, but I need it back now. Please put it in the next place I'll look. Oddly, this works more often than not. I don't think it's anything supernatural. But I don't mind hedging my bets either. Most likely, it's the act of pausing and taking my mind off the search for a moment that does the trick. I've done that too. I was reading a book. Set it down on the nightstand and it was gone the next morning. I tore my room apart looking for it. No dice. So I say. See Monday now. I was reading that. Can I have it back when you're done? 2 weeks later the book's back on the nightstand. Thanks for returning it. Hope you liked it. I'm of the fairies took at school. I've got several kids and night terrors are always a bit freaky. But once you know it's normal and what it's like, you kind of get used to it. But my middle child had something happen a couple years ago that didn't seem like it could be a night terror. He's almost 5 now and has been pretty advanced in academics for a while. Somehow learned how to read the names of numbers and colors and such, and I accidentally found out one day when I caught him reading what I had written. He came into my room very upset one night. Night terror. Except he was fully awake. I know they can seem like they're awake but they're not. But I had him doing math. 3 plus 2 is? Dart. 5. Asking very high level questions about things. He seemed fully alert and aware. But he was seeing something my wife and I could not see. Something threatening and scary. The fly was going to get him. He shrieked ear-piercing screeches. Consistently turning away and back to the doorway into my master bath where he saw this thing that was invisible to me. This happened for a few nights. 2. I could only reassure him that he was okay and nothing was there and we would protect him. You're okay. You're okay. I'd tell him. He always darted down the hallway between his room and mine for a few days after this. Reassuring himself by saying I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay as he ran. Poor thing. Freaked my wife and me out completely. A total of 3 times in my life I have had memories of seeing movie trailers that hadn't been made yet. It's not even a feeling of deja vu. It's a clear vivid memory of seeing the movie before. I distinctly remember being young and homesick. Seeing a rather awful movie on television starring Hulk Hogan as a babysitter. It was memorably bad. So about 3 years later when it was released in theaters I was understandably confused. 2 things. Each was witnessed by at least one other person and both were while driving. One sat a stop sign in a neighborhood. All of these little sparkles started swirling around in midair roughly 3-4 feet off the ground out of nowhere. The group of them were roughly 2 feet wide by 3-4 feet tall. It lasted 3-5 seconds and then they were gone. No one was around, and when I asked my passenger if he saw it too, he breathed a sigh of relief and said yes. We spoke about it a little more, but there is no reasonable explanation. The second happened when myself and 3 friends were driving down an empty country road. Very straight stretch. A man on a bike appeared. Someone said to watch out for him. So not to hit him, and then he disappeared. Our minds were blown, to say the least. Just poof and he's gone. I've had something similar to the man on the bike thing. No drugs etc, well rested etc, etc. Driving down a road where you can clearly see everything. No places to hide and jump out etc. No hills, curves that could hide a person. I am an extremely alert driver and was speeding, so I was paying attention. Scan the road ahead. Check rear mirror. Check right mirror. Road ahead. Check left mirror. Scan the road ahead. Repeat basically until I decide to look at the view to the left. For like 1 second. Probably less. Look back to the road ahead. This person. It's walking along the road away from me. I immediately got chills and was legit scared. They were not closed yet. No danger of hitting them. What scared me is they literally just appeared and my lizard brain was saying something is very off about them. I went past them and wanted to look in the mirror to see this thing. I couldn't though because I was afraid of what I would see or what would happen. Which is not like me. Was really weird. For obvious reasons I always keep a reverse Uno card in my pocket. A blue reverse Uno card which I once found on my nightstand. Anyways. I had accidentally washed it with my pants. It was destroyed. The next day after waking up. Guess what I found on my nightstand? A blue Uno reverse card. You better prepare to be washed at some point. You washed the reverse card. Now the reverse card will wash you. So. Op will have a shower? An involuntary one. Likely fully clothed. My wife passed away a year ago today. Had some odd things happen, like a couple of old meaningful pictures show up that I swore were in storage. The strangest one was I vacuumed the carpet and as soon as I was done a diamond ring was on the ground right where I had just cleaned. It was like she was saying, hey, this one is real, don't lose it. I was playing fetch with my master. I was enjoying running to catch the ball as he threw it and then I ran back and gave it back to him and he threw it again. And we kept doing this. Then he threw the ball. And when I went to look for it, it had completely disappeared. Vanished. I vividly remember him throwing the ball, but I looked everywhere and it was gone. Couldn't even smell it. But here's the weirdest thing when I look back. The ball has rematerialized in Master's hand from behind his back. This happened last summer and I still think about it to this day. I always seem to glance at a clock with the 11 minutes showing at least 4 times a day. It drives me bananas for some reason. This is a long one. TLDR at the bottom. So I was cycling to work at about 8 AM and there was quite a lot of traffic on the road. I stopped for a break in a bus shelter since it was raining and just sat there watching the traffic slowly moving, and eventually I got bored and I couldn't leave since the wind had gotten worse and I would have been blown off the bicycle. I stayed there for what must have been about 15 minutes and the entire street just went silent. I looked around for a cause but there was none. Then the weather suddenly became clear and I thought meant the clouds went away to another place. They just stopped being there. In the space of 3 or 4 seconds. They just vanished. I looked back down and the King traffic had disappeared. At this point I thought I had been unconcerned or something, so I called an ambulance rather than risk this happening while I'm cycling. I got to the hospital and they checked me out and said I had nothing obviously wrong, but they wanted to keep me under observation for a while. I was amazingly bored there, so I checked my chart and it said it was Saturday f. King Saturday. I was at the bus stop on Monday. 6 days of my life just disappeared. TL. DR 6 days of my life never happened.